Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in for another poker hand. My name is Blaise Bourgeois, and this hand comes from a 30 entry, $30 tournament that I played tonight. I ended up chopping two ways for about $240 each, which felt really nice considering I made a really bad mistake in an earlier tournament today. But what was worse about that mistake is that I recognized that I was making the mistake in the moment, but I still made it anyway. I basically paid to see the information that I already knew. So I was very happy to make up for that. Remember, we're always learning, we're always adapting, but every single one of us in life, in poker, never ever stop learning. That's when you really start to die. But anyway, today, I'm sharing with you a hand from the final table of that tournament. We're down to 4 players. We're already in the money at this point and guaranteed to win around $100, I believe the amount was. So this is the hand that I almost single-handedly credit for earning the chop in this tournament, and it really all came down to patience and not overplaying your hand and taking advantage of knowledge that your opponent gives you. So here we are. We're at 2,000, 4,000 blinds, 500 antes. Top 3 stacks are very similar at this point. 4th place is definitely still a middle stack, sitting on 9 big blinds. So nobody is out of this. And at this point, everybody doesn't want to be that guy that comes out in 4th place and doesn't ladder up to 3rd. I think the 3rd place prize is 125. And then 2nd place was about 190, and 1st place was about 290 in this tournament. So nobody is looking to bust out at $100 when you could almost triple your money if you win the tournament. So chances of your opponents playing a very tighter range and just throwing away stuff that they would usually play with four-handed in good position, those chances go really up. So anyway, let's take a look at this hand. So I get a pretty nice hand in the big blind. Ace, deuce of spades. Right when I see it, I'm probably committing myself to a call of around 10,000 here. If it's the button that raises to 10K, I probably would consider shoving all in, because there are 8,000 chips in the pot right now, and for him to go up from 36 to 44, it's a pretty decent leap and would definitely close the gap between him and the rest of the field. So that's definitely a possibility, but his likelihood of trying to blind steal, because there's so many chips in front of him, he's not at risk of blinding out yet, and he's not so far behind that he needs a double up. Those odds go down quite a bit as well. So take advantage of some fold equity if you have it here, but that doesn't happen. So see 2 folds, button folds, and it gets to a slow value better. And of course I spell the word better wrong here. So anyway, I had played with this guy 4 or 5 handed for the last 20 or 30 minutes. And luckily, he went down to quite a number of showdowns. And what I was gathering through looking at the previous hand history and, just analyzing his play, he played a very consistent strategy of raising with ace-x or higher and flatting with everything else. So what he decides to do is call. And now this right here is the decision that changed the whole tournament. Do you raise or do you check? Now, let's think about this. You have a hand that flops pretty well four-handed. If you raise and he folds, you pick up 1.5 big blinds. Which, or if you want to count your big blind as well, protecting it, 2.5 big blinds. Which, you're not short stacked. You already have 13.5 big blinds behind you. If you're short stacked or you have absolute garbage, like, I don't know, a 7-3 or a 6-9 or something here, then maybe you raise in this position and try to steal the blinds. If you raise and then he 3-bets on you, now what do you do? Then you become the victim of being afraid to come in fourth here. This is the only stack on the table that has you completely covered. There's seat number 2 over there, virtually equal. So you don't want to get in big with him. If he would 3-bet there, he's almost 100% of the time in this spot hoping that you 4-bet and he's going to call. And he would be playing out of his line, trying to rep something big, even like a king, queen or something, or slow playing middle pair, or in all likelihood with a 3-bet, semi-bluffing suited connectors that he'd probably be all right with calling a 4-bet shove. So in that case, if you raise and he 3-bets, you just put yourself in a really tough spot, and you probably are going to fold, and you miss a chance to see the ace or spades come out. Now, if you raise and he calls, you're probably going to raise here another 6 to 8K, which would put, say I raised 12,000 and he calls. That's another 16,000 in the pot. 46,000 behind with 24K in the pot. You're probably not going to see a lot of small betting after that. somebody's probably going to go all in, whether it's a bluff or not. And almost certainly whoever is the one that initiates the all in is going to take down the pot unless you hit like top pair. And with an ace deuce suited, it's a hand that you want ideally to see a river. You want to see the whole board. So after computing that in roughly about 10 seconds, I decide to check. So let's see a flop. And it's so beautiful. It comes out ace jack 4. Top pair with aces with a backdoor flush draw and a backdoor wheel draw. And like we mentioned earlier, based on how my opponent has acted consistently, this ace has got me ahead. Also, he's been betting marginal hands a lot. And this board is rainbow and it's spaced out. So he definitely doesn't have a 2 pair here. Like ace jack, he would have done something with. Ace 4, he would have definitely raised. Jack 4, he would have thrown away unless it was suited. But I mean, that's the only thing we're really afraid of is a jack 4 suited here. So chances are we're pretty ahead. Now, when you think, if he has hit this board, what could he have? We're looking at hands like 6-4, 5-4, 4-3, 4-2, Jack 9, Jack 8, Jack 7, or any suited jack. So he decides to check. And I check here. So again, this is an opponent who often believes his marginal pair will be good. I don't want to give him any information about my hand. Right now, I've checked pre-flop, and now I've checked the flop. He's got 0 information on what I could hold. I'm almost certainly ahead. And I can improve my backdoor draws, or my 2 pair, or improve to 2 pair, or improve to trips for free. And on top of that, because of the board texture here, not too many turn cards really mess me up here. If a 10, a queen, or a king comes out, I'm not worried that he's got a straight. He would have raised with those 2 cards, 2 high cards pre-flop. And like I mentioned, he could be holding something like a 3-5 or 2-3 suited and improve to a straight. But if he does that, well, first, it's unlikely. I do have a deuce blocker. If he did have a 3-5, and even if a 2 or a 3 comes out, I still have outs to, get a straight of my own and earn a chop there. Only things I'd be kind of worried about, like I don't want to see a jack. But even so, like, a jack of spades is still out there. And that would not be worst case scenario if he improves to trips and I still have an ace high flush draw and, 2 outs to improve to ace trips. A full boat at that point. So could he have a 4? Yeah. So if another 4 comes out, could be bad news, but we're talking 6 outs here. Other cards that might not be ideal. A 9 might not be ideal. A 6 might not be ideal. But we're looking pretty good. So I check here. And it's one of those cards that I kind of didn't want, but it's a spade. I improve to a flush draw. If you really think about it, Jack 9 probably in his small blind raising range, whereas maybe a 10-8 would not be. So maybe he improved to an open-ended straight draw here. But realistically, I don't think he's holding any of the 2-pair hands. And at this point, I see that 9 of spades, and I'm relaxed, and I'm getting ready to bet small if he checks to try to get some value, and basically see, hey, you got yourself a marginal pair here that you're willing to see a river with. But he beats me to the punch, and he decides to bet 5,000 into a 10,000 pot, a half pot bet. Now, at this point, I'm pretty convinced that he's got a pair of jacks, or maybe even turned a pair of 9s. And in my head, my worst case scenario here is that he's got a 10-8, or by some grace of God, he's got a jack 4 suited. But even then, I don't know. It just seems so unlikely at this point. So even if he did have 2-pair, it seems like he would want you to be calling with a flush draw here. And if he suspected you of having an ace, or he was afraid of the ace, or excuse me, if he wasn't afraid of the ace, he might be betting even bigger here. Now, also something to consider, he might also have spades. He could also have spades and hit a flush draw of his own. Maybe he's got jack of spades with something else. And he's thinking, oh boy, second pair with the flush draw. And if that's the case, and a spade runs out, you're just going to stack him in all likelihood. So I could probably raise him to 12,500 or 15,000 here. And he's probably going to call that. But a bet out of nowhere on the turn, or a raise out of nowhere on the turn, is probably going to put him off. Even though he might call this, like if I put, say, 15,000 in right now, he's only got 10,000 to call into a 30,000 pot. So at that point, if you got a straight draw or even jack high for 10,000 more with 55K behind you, or I think 50K behind you, 55K behind you, it's not even 20% of your stack. Like, you're going to call that and try to improve your hand. So, and unless you do improve your hand, he's not going to be putting more money into the pot unless he's not going to put money into the pot that benefits you unless he hits a magical card on the river that gives him 2 pair that also makes your straight, or your flush rather. So that's situation 1, or if he himself happens to have a jack high flush. And even so, he might be a little weary. You know, queen eye flush, king eye flush. Probably not thinking I have an ace now. So, advantages to call. It's not even 10,000 or 10% of your stack. And it's 5,000 to call into a 15,000 pot with what you already believe is the best hand and could improve to the nuts. And there are 14 cards in the deck that could improve my hand. Aces, deuces, and spades. That's a 30.5% chance of improving to the nuts or virtual nuts. Like, trip aces are going to win. 2 pair ace deuce is going to win. Or flush. Those are the nuts. And again, not really too many cards that could come out that could be scary. So, no matter really what comes up on the river, unless he, gets super lucky and connects on 2 pair or trips, it's a great chance to prepare to bet big on the river. Because if I check pre-flop, I check the flop, and I call a little half-pot bet on the turn, a river bet's going to look like a bluff, or that I might have something small. Like maybe he's got the jack and maybe thinks I hit a 9. So I simply call and leave my veil of mystery alive and well. And now there's 20,000 in the pot. And we get to the river. And oh my goodness, what a card. A 7 of spades. Very, very magical card here. Number 1, In the unlikely event that he also has spades, not impossible, but in the unlikely event that he does, he's obliterated. A little more likely, maybe he's got 10-8 and makes a straight. Also, Jack 9-7 out there. Although probably not with the Jack 9. There's some nice two-pair possibilities there. Jack 7's a little limp hand. 9-7. Even if you want to really dig, 7-4. But most importantly, I've got the nuts. I can't lose. I cannot lose. And because of the way that I've played this hand, I'm in a position, no matter what happens, I can make a big bet here. And he's going to at least really think about, is this a bluff? Now, obviously, we're hoping that he opens with a bet here so that we can put even more money on top of him. But he checks. Now, we think about bet sizing. I'm really not the biggest fan of pot betting or over betting the pot unless it really seems necessary. It's more of a live game strategy for me. Or say, like, if I had 35,000 behind me instead of 50,000. A 15K bet at that point, you really might as well just throw it all in there and see what happens. But because you have the nuts, that's not the case. So I really thought about this. And at this point, I'm convinced he's got minimum a pair of 9s, but I really think he's got a pair of jacks or better. And he's probably thinking he's pretty good. And at this point, I don't think he can get away from a jack. So I bet 18,000 into a 20,000 pot. Now this is also because he's got 51K behind him. He's not putting his tournament life at risk. He's not worried about dropping to, he's not worried about getting laddered right now and finishing in 4th. This is a spot where I know he's definitely not going to raise me unless he's one of those wild players that thinks his 2-pair is super good right here. And he thinks I have an ace for whatever reason. Or if he overvalues a jack-high flush. So at this point, I know probably no more money's going in the pot. So 18,000 for me, wonderful. And he thinks about it for a while. and he makes the call. And I take it down, and I take a beautiful 56,000 chip pot to go up to 88,000 against chip stacks that are at 52,000, 36,000, and 32,000. And after that, I basically end up taking a couple blinds, raising my big hands, getting folded to and taking blinds. But mainly I end up watching them beat each other up. The slow value bettor actually ends up taking one of them out on an even money all in. Basically, both of them were all in for about the same amount of chips. And then the other guy ends up literally blinding himself out, just does not take any stabs, or maybe he was super card dead, but even then you got to do some semi bluffs. And I take him out, and it's me and slow bettor. I'm at 106,000 chips. He's at 104,000 chips. And immediately when it gets down to just the two of us, I ask him, hey, you want to play or you want to chop? And he's like, whatever. And I'm like, all right, let's chop. Like I said earlier, it was about $190 for first, about $290 for first, about $190 for second. I really wasn't in the mood to play heads up for $100 at this point, so chop it like it's hot, take down $240, and keep that bankroll growing. Alright guys, I hope you liked my video. Please subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, comments, or if you have ways that you would have played this hand differently, feel free to drop me a line and we can pick each other's brains. Anyway, this is Blaise signing off. Ciao for now.